video you're about to watch has been designed to take you deeper, higher, and wider into Yahweh. Enjoy, and please subscribe. Thank you.
Father, it's in this place where we can step deeper into you, where you have, through what you've done in your word, through what you've done through your servants, your sons, your daughters, the ones that love you, the ones that have been intimate, Father, they have written and spoken into the word of Yahweh. They have spoken things into the atmosphere, and we have access into it. And we slowly but surely begin to understand that everything that's been spoken into the earth, everything that's been written, we have the ability as spirit beings to go into. So everything that's out there for us as sons and daughters is literally a porthole to go into the kingdom of heaven, to access the things that you have released and the secrets and mysteries that you want us to walk in, the things that you desire for your sons and daughters to access in its full capacity. And I know that the key of everything you engage, letting us to engage in today, is so that we can legislate the kingdom of heaven into the earth. Father, it's exciting, but I know that our focus has to be on intimacy. So tonight, Father, we need to get ourselves in the revelation and understanding that everything you've given us is a porthole in to a deeper place of intimacy, to get to know you better, to get to love you more, to get access to your heartbeat, and to go according to that fluency. Begin to understand what you pour into us and to run the whole of it as we live in you and you live in us, and the full capacity of your glory is in us, and we get to legislate that glory into the earth. Father, we love you. We pray you should be glorified in your majesty. We love you, Yahweh. Amen. Okay, so how you guys doing? I started that already. Well, this is very interesting because I am actually ministering on Psalm 23 tonight. And she didn't know that. She didn't know that. Usually she'll ask me what am I ministering on tonight, and she didn't ask me today. She said she switched her phone off. I say she is Crystal. So the idea that we have with Psalm 23 is that it's literally portholes as you read through it. There's access points in it that you can engage. And of course, the whole of the Word of God is like that. So I'm just using Psalm 23. It's one of my favorites. And we need to begin to understand that the Father has given us access to engage into the Word of God. Everything that's there has been spoken, and because it's been spoken, some of it has been written. Because that which is written we have as the Logos, but there's also spoken word that we, said it many times for the last 500 years, haven't been able to see. But now that we're spirit beings and we begin to understand the value of our sight in the spirit, and we can go into the timeline and see the things that has been spoken, we can engage. That's where most of the mysteries and the secrets come from. We also begin to understand that we go through the blood of Yeshua into the kingdom of heaven, and that entrance into the heavens, that shift from one kingdom to another, that transference literally gives you access to the mysteries and the secrets, because I go through Yeshua into the kingdom. And it's like the priests that walk through the veil. It's going through everything the previous priests have had knowledge of, had engaged, their conversations with God, the revelations the Father gave them, the intimacy they had, the knowledge they carried, the revelation they got out of the Word of Yahweh, the things that they walked with. He gets to walk through all of that. And so we have the ability through His Word to go into it and walk through everything that the one who wrote it at that point, led by the Spirit of Yahweh, has meant for us to go into. Yes. So Psalm 23, of course, it's probably most people's favorite psalm, and I personally love it. So, Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for His name's sake. Yet though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. And you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now, just to stop there, because that's the end of the psalm. but to go back in your conscious mind and really just go over the sentences, if you can almost go sentence per sentence, and see how the Father wants us to begin to understand that whole psalm from the beginning to the end is basically your Christian life. Come on. And we get access into all of it. Yes. It makes me lay down in green pastures. I mean, just to stop there, that blows my mind, because it takes me back to an encounter that I had with him and I've shared with you before. You know, I was taken onto a mountain where I met with an eagle that had my name on his chest. I got onto the eagle, he started flying me through the kingdom and took me to a green pasture, a valley where I could look at it, and I almost saw the image of Psalm 23. And as I got into it, the eagle landed, I climbed off, and Yeshua was flying there, and there was a crowd of people around him. And he looked at me and said, "My son, it's time to become one with me." And I went through a process of trying to figure this out, because my mind is still on the bride, so this is going to be sexual experience. Trying to figure that out, you know. But very quickly they rebuked me and said, "Well, this is not what it is. Because we don't understand it. It's that beyond the veil, it's a different dimension. It's that something else. Physical intimacy is for this side of the veil. And that's the covenant with a husband and wife. And that's why he always relates it to that, because it's the highest level of covenant that we have regarding intimacy. In the kingdom of heaven, it's a whole different ballgame. It's physically becoming one with him, because we have to become the body, right? God wants us to know him and to know the reality of how he is revealed in his word. Now, what I love about Psalm 23, it's a powerful psalm which talks about the intimate worship God desires to have with us. It's his desire for you and for me to step into the fullness of his glory. Yes. It's access into. He will just, we're going to look at a couple of phrases. Obviously, we're not going to do the whole thing. I'm going to try and do the whole thing. But I just want you to understand the Father wants you to also go do a study on it. You know, this is just one scripture. There's hundreds of scriptures. But if I look at the Lord is my shepherd, I just stop there. The Lord. That's something that we can engage for days. You know, the Lord, it's a term that God has chosen to use to describe his character and nature. We understand that there's multiple names for God. I mean, Satan has 17 names. They say God has 70 names. We haven't really engaged all those names yet, because the Hebrew culture won't release it to the public. You understand that they won't even speak the name. Okay, but there's a couple of names we're going to do. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my righteousness. Just to kind of get you to understand righteousness, and I know that most of us by this time in your Christian walk should understand righteousness. But in my own personal space, I've realized that if I can walk in the fullness of what Yahweh has given me, I begin to step into the fullness of his presence. Because what righteousness literally means is that I'm in right standing with God, or that I have the right to stand in his presence. But when we begin to understand that because of Yeshua, he has given me the right to stand in his presence, that changes everything. Nothing can come and tell me that I can't. No matter what I do, no matter what I have fallen into, no matter where I found myself, the righteousness, which is a gift, which means I can't do anything for it. I can't get more righteousness, I can't get less righteousness. I can feel less righteous, and I can feel more righteous, according to my deeds and according to what I do. But the reality is I am righteous because that's the gift, right? And we're looking at the word Lord, because that's kind of where the Father says, well, if you understand that I am Lord, then in me all things overshadow you. You know, I have a landlord. She's the owner of the land that I live. Yahweh is my Lord. Yeshua is my Lord. He's the owner of this house. Therefore, he can live in it. He owns it. He rules it. Does that make sense? Yes. And we have to remind ourselves of that every now and then. The Lord is my sanctification. This is the process of transformation and change that God wants us to go through. We've done the consuming fire. It's pretty much going into that, understanding that it is just as if I've never sinned. Sanctification. It's like the Father wants to tell you and remind you every now and then, because we forget. We forget what Yeshua did. So every time we do something that subconsciously doesn't feel like the right thing, or it feels like the wrong thing, then we immediately bring condemnation upon ourselves. Now, unfortunately for us, that's actually the job of the enemy. Right? We're not supposed to bring condemnation on ourselves, but then immediately, oh, I want to go to church this week, I feel so bad about what I did. And most of the time, it's not even a major thing. I look at some of the guys that I love and honor and respect that comes to my meetings and then just stop coming, and I can feel in the spirit that it's because they've done something that the religious church would look at and say, well, why did you do that? That is so wrong. wrong. So we immediately feel condemned, although yes, Satan brings condemnation, but in righteousness, in the revelation of righteousness, and the fact that I'm sanctified, that shouldn't stop me from carrying on with an intimate relationship. Because we're all going to stumble and we're all going to fall and do stupid things at different manners, at different heights. But the Father wants us to have access back into His kingdom, and realizing that we're not allowed to go in because we are holy and set apart. We are allowed to go in through the blood of Yeshua.
That's right.
Right? We understand that the Lord is here. So it's different names. I want to read the Hebrew names, but that, doesn't make any sense. Like the Lord is there. In Hebrew it's Shema. Jehovah Shema. Which means He's here. I only really remember that because my friend called his dog Shema. And the reason he called his dog Shema was because his previous dog's name was Tyson. And he wanted to kill everything he saw. So eventually he had to put the dog out. Yeah, after Mike Tyson. He literally called the dog after Mike Tyson, so his name was Tyson. So he was this vicious dog. So the next dog he got, he called Shema. Probably that. And the problem with this dog was biting kids. Anyway, yeah. Because they couldn't come near a friend of mine because it was like the dog was his protector. But I've noticed the same thing. I called one of my dogs Zeus, and he thought it was some kind of god. I called one of my dogs Asics. Now, I don't know if you guys know, it's a running shoe.
Oh, okay.
Asics.
Yes.
Asics. And so that's exactly what he did. He would run away all the time. I mean, we lived in Blowick Strand, and he would run to Tableview. It was like 20 miles. And we would go, oh, thank God, this dog is gone. And then someone would call, we found your dog in Tableview. I'm like, you're joking me.
Is that the one that would run and get in the bed and stuff?
Yes, that's the one. Eventually, we gave him back to the guy again.
Oh, okay.
But the next dog we got, we called him Zero.
Oh.
I know that's terrible, but it's after. We called him Zero so that he couldn't relate to his name and act accordingly.
Okay.
So he was very lazy, he did nothing. And that's kind of what we wanted, you know? It worked out pretty good. The next word for Yahweh's name is the Lord is there. And really He just wants us to continue, to be continuous and understand, to be continually active in His presence and to know that He's always there.
Yes.
And I remember when I was a backslidden Christian, not really backslidden, a baby. Now babies kind of backslid all the time. And I remember I actually broke my rededicator. And I shared this a couple of times, so I rededicated myself so many times, eventually I just couldn't do it anymore. It was broken. There was just nothing in me that could rededicate my life. But Father wants us to know, and I was told, well, if you go into a nightclub, Holy Spirit stays behind. If you do this, the Holy Spirit doesn't come. But of course the word says, will never leave you nor forsake you, right? And a Shema is saying, I'm there.
Yeah.
And the idea is that I'm in Him. So wherever He is, I am.
That's right.
And we just need to begin to understand it. This is really a shift. That's why if he says in the beginning, the Lord is my shepherd, that's kind of where we want to stop, the Lord. Because in that phrase, the Lord, I have access in. Because I only have Him as my Lord through the blood of Yeshua. And that opens up the gates. And then understanding His name, understanding what the Lord represents. It represents Him as my shepherd. It represents me as His righteousness, sanctification, that He's always there. Of course, it also represents peace, because it's Jehovah Shalom, right? We understand His peace is far more than just being chilled out. Right? His peace is wholeness and absolute perfect rest. It's in Him that we find rest, not peace. Peace is actually a dimension of power that we release.
Yes.
That's why I speak peace. I don't fall into peace, climb into peace. I speak peace. It's a dimension of authority that is released out of wanting rest. So because I'm in Yahweh, I'm rested in Him. When I'm in that place, I speak peace. It's like alignment. It's like when I speak shalom into an atmosphere, into a place, into a business, into a life, into a family, things has to align. And that's where we need to begin to understand the power of being in Him, because it's in Him that we rest, and it's out of the rest that there's peace. And it's the fact that we can speak it in the fullness of it as sons that releases the atmosphere into place and alignment. Everything we need is complete in Him. We understand as well, the Lord is my healer. Now this all just comes out of the very first phrase. And so he just wants us to kind of go a little bit deeper when we study the Word. And the idea, especially now, as spirit beings, we get to go into the Word. You know, one of my favorite places to go into is when the prophet threw the axe head into the water. And it started drifting. That's pretty freaky. You know, that's pretty freaky. To go in there and to see that, that's incredible. There's many things in the spirit we can go into that's incredible, mind-blowing. But the Father wants us to engage it like that. When you remind yourself that you're living out of the heavens, and when you're in the Spirit, all things are exposed. And the only way for you to go into everything that's exposed, and of course, we don't want to go into people's sin and into people's problems and people's issues. That's not really what it's there for. If you listen and look at Yeshua's life, he never, ever, not once, except for the Pharisees, and not really as blatant as what prophets are doing today. I remember a friend of mine got born again this way. He comes walking in the back of the church late. The prophet takes in front, looks at him and says, "Repent! You're addicted to pornography." And of course he almost peed his pants, repented, sat down and got born again. Today he's a religious freak that manipulates the church, that is, if I see him I want to vomit, but yet I want to love him and hug him. My wife has forbidden me to go near him. I know that sounds terrible, but and I don't know if it's gossip, I'm just trying to throw something out there. So I'm sitting with him at the table and he picks up the phone and he says, "Oh no, I'll send you the pictures of my orphanage, and then I'll send you the detail of where the payments need to go. Thank you, bless you, God bless you, love you, hallelujah." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know you had an orphanage." He's like, no, I'm just getting some money out of the Americans. I'll teach you how to do that if you want me to." I'm like, no. He introduces me to his friends. He's like, "Oh, this is Gustav Le Roux. You know, he's one of those preachers that's not in it for the money." I'm like, okay, I'm going to step away now. Unfortunately, there's too much of that. But the Father wants us to engage. He wants us to understand that the Word is there for us to be opened up and to go into. You know, He wants to show us the reality of who He is, so we can go into all of the Word. But when you're in the Spirit and things are exposed, it's not so much about what's exposed. And if I look at the lives in front of me, I can see all the things, and I'm sure you look at me and can see all the things, but that's not the focus. You know, I'm covered in the blood, and you're covered in the blood, and Yahweh's focus is not our sins. That's the job of the church, apparently, and that's the job of the religious, and that's the job of Satan and all the demonic entities. They want to focus on your sin, right? But the Father doesn't do that. He wants us to look at the lives of those around us and propel them and lift them up. You know, go into what you see. I see certain things in the Spirit that I don't understand. I'm going into it. And in it, I might not receive anything that I can visibly read or see or write down. But when I come out, there's an infused knowledge that gets downloaded into my soul as I engage deep into the kingdom of heaven. And of course, the Father wants us to begin to understand that.
So, when that happens to you, is it like something will come up later and then it comes up in you and you realize that you've got it?
Yeah, for me it's different because I preach all the time. So a lot of what I engage in the heavens is released in the teaching.
So you don't even know what you're saying.
Most of the time, what I say and what my notes has, it's not the same thing.
Right.
Most of what I say comes out as I speak it.
So you surprise yourself.
I surprise. That's why I literally have to go back to my notes before I edit it. I edit it and I put it on YouTube. On Facebook, it's live. You know, I can't do anything about it. But on YouTube, I edit it. I see I realize what I said, but then I'm listening to it again for the first time. Sometimes I literally speak in tongues in English. That's what it feels like to me.
So that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of times when you're engaging, you feel like, well, I don't know if anything happened in that moment. So you're saying, don't worry about that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. If you're engaging and nothing's happening, you've engaged by faith, but the reality of your engagement is that your spirit engaged something, your soul has to get the download, so everything doesn't happen instantly. It's a process. And of course, We understand that as I go in and I engage with the seven spirits, or I go speak to an angel, or I have this engagement with the Father, or I do these things, and there's this audible word that comes down that I can literally just write down exactly what he said. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes maybe in a little bit, but most of the time it's an infused knowledge that's already in your spirit that was just poured into you, awakened in you, now it has to get downloaded into your soul. That's why the idea is that we go through the transformation in my spirit, in my soul, to get to understand what my spirit's pouring into me. Because my soul is the one that rejects everything that comes. And so, as a matter of fact, I've said this many times, within the kingdom of heaven is a room of mysteries, or a treasury room of revelation. And it's basically, it's emptied now, but before, when I just started engaging this, it was packed out. It was almost overfilling. And I kept on asking the Father, what's going on here? Why is it like this? Why is this room so full? And he said, the leaders of the day keep sending these new revelations back.
Oh, come on.
And of course, it's because we've been doing everything on this side of the veil, we haven't gone beyond the veil. And that's the problem, because once you go beyond the veil, you begin to understand that I don't have to understand everything that the Father's pouring into me. There's a process of order that comes in, and I begin to understand as I go on, but it's by faith. So I'm speaking out here by faith, because in New Orleans, we've done hundreds of messages. Well, it's 5 years. So it's 250 messages. Well, 258 messages. If you take every week over 5 years, with 52 weeks, so we have 260 messages, just out of one class. And when I started, when I came to America, I had one message, and that was the Dividing Soul Spirit. That was it. One message that I really engaged and changed my life, and I wanted to bring this message to America in the understanding that I had regarding it. And when the Father said, well, this is what's on your scroll, you need to go in and start teaching the Spirit School, I did not have a clue what it was going to be like, because I didn't have any messages. I didn't want to preach the old stuff because the old stuff was just not right. I was a pastor of the church for many years, so I had thousands of messages in my heart, but I couldn't keep on doing that. I couldn't preaching that anymore, because I needed to go beyond the veil instead of this side of the veil. So the Father, by faith, as I engaged, he literally exploded in me. I remember one specific teaching that it's on YouTube. That was the law of righteousness. And it was the very first time I did the 24 laws of Jerusalem and the 24 laws of Zion. The 24 laws of Jerusalem, one of them is the law of righteousness. And I had my notes, but I had nothing on my page. And I said to the Father in the engagement, I have no idea what I need to say for the next hour on righteousness and the law of righteousness. And so he said to me, well, don't worry, you've engaged this before in the heavens. And I started preaching this message, and while I was teaching it, I was out of myself, listening to me, ministering this. So I was basically one of the guys sitting in the chair listening to someone minister a word that I've never heard before in my life. I went back again to listen to it again, and it was just freaking amazing. I don't blow my own horn, but it was good, and it wasn't me. I can't even take any credit for it. It felt like I was speaking in tongues for the hour that I was teaching. So we carry on, and we remind ourselves that he's also our healer, the Lord and my healer. He wants us to come into him to find perfect health in body, soul, and spirit. For me personally, right now, I believe the Father's focus on the ecclesia is the physical body. It's the physical body that he's focusing on, because we're getting the soul fixed, we have the spirit activated and going into places, but it's still the subconscious belief that my body has to die. That's affecting our destiny, that's affecting who we are. Because there's men and women dying that's not called to die, that's not supposed to die right now. There's things happening in the earth, sickness, disease, that the sons of God's not overshadowing. Because of the gifts, and I have no problem with the gifts, I love the gifts, that we will pray for a person with cancer and see healing, and it's incredible. We will pray for a person that has got HIV, and they will see a miracle, and it will be healed, and it's incredible. But that's not the Father's heartbeat. The legislation that needs to come out of the kingdom of heaven is dealing with cancer. Not cancer in a person, dealing with cancer, dealing with HIV. Yeah, but it's the judgment of God on the sins of the nation. No, it's not. It is not. My God does not come to kill, steal, and destroy. He comes to give life in abundance. So everything out there that is opposite of life in abundance is the enemy wanting to kill, steal, and destroy. So that's not my God. So I have authority over it. His desire for us to legislate out of the kingdom of heaven to full establishment of what it's supposed to be, the realignment. If you listen to Bill Johnson, he makes a statement. His father passed away. I'm not 100% sure of the logistics of this, but his dad died of cancer. And so he made a pact in his heart that he's going to deal with cancer in the city. You know, and him and his team has come against cancer in the city, and the cancer rates in the city has dropped radically because they come to the people and getting to understand the authority that they carry. That through the gifts we can pray for one person that has got cancer and they can be healed. But through the engagement of the kingdom of heaven and understanding who Yahweh is, that He is the healer, and we're in Him, and we have that same ability, we deal with the sin.
Yes.
We deal with that which destroys. Once the sin has been dealt with, not in the people, in the nation, and the nation can only be aligned through a son or a daughter.
Yes.
Can't be aligned through Yahweh or Yeshua. I know that sounds very well. He's an almighty God. He can do whatever He wants, but He's also just. And in Him being just, He has said, I've given you dominion and authority, so you have to do it. So we've been praying for individuals, and that's great, but when we start praying against a disease, when we start coming against that which was established out of alignment, then there's great healing in the nation. And we haven't to say done it yet, but I know that slowly but surely they can see beginning to understand the governments that we need to present to the earth. And that's exciting, right? So they understand that God wants to heal us, bring it to that perfect health, body, soul, and spirit. We understand that He's our provider, that we no longer need to struggle just to have enough. His desire for us is to step into everything, not just money. He will provide all of our needs and more. You know, I understand that we have problems and issues financially. You know, if I look at what I used to earn when I just started, as a personal trainer, we're doing extremely well. No financial problems. God was faithful. If we had any lack, He would give me the steps that I need to take to open the doors. And it was usually in giving. It was always in that. Matter of fact, always in giving. Now I remember the Father one of my clients giving me a cash check of 1,800 rand, which would be maybe $150. And I took this check and I said, Lord, this check's going to have to lie in my account for 7 days. It's kind of frustrating. So He says to me, okay, well in that case, sow it. I'm like, okay, no, it's fine. I'm not complaining. I'll put it in the account. But anyway, I said, okay, fine. Well, what do you want me to sow it to? But anyway, I sowed it. I've never been a major giver. My wife is the reason that we give the measure that we do today, because she's the giver. I'm just following her example. But I'm not the giver that I could be. I'm still growing in that. But I remember giving that check, and I haven't even really given it into the hands of that guy yet. And my phone started ringing, and I got 2 clients in one session that will work hours. So it's 2 clients, 1 hour, but it's double pay. So it was 3 times that amount, almost instantly, and they were with me for a long time. So the Lord, in that time, He just showed me that He would open the doors. When we started living by faith, it was a whole different ballgame. Because we have to trust at a different level. You know, I remember being at a place in my walk where I said, Lord, okay, so He asked me, basically, do you want to go full-time in ministry and not work at all and trust me so that I can teach you? Or do you want to carry on as a personal trainer and do what you do? Because there's time. You know, there was maybe 60, 70 people in the church that I was pastoring. It wasn't a major job. It wasn't something that I couldn't do both. And then with the personal training, I was in the morning early, and I was basically finished by 2 or 3 o'clock. And the idea is I could do both, no problem. But the Father wanted me to make a decision because He wanted me to grow. He wanted to teach me. So the first couple of months was crazy because the people didn't know how to give. They did not know anything about giving. As a matter of fact, giving was a demonic word. And if you preach on giving, they'll literally get up and do it. It was very Afrikaans culture. The Afrikaans culture has a denominational church called the Dutch Reformed. In my language, it's called NG. So it's NG. But in Afrikaans, NG can also, but it's NG as NG, it's the letters. N is N, and here is G. Okay, so it also means, if you say in here, it means and give. So when you related the church to the people, it was in here, and give, and give, and give, and give. It's basically all the church ever wanted was your money. You were only good enough when you were a good giver. And so that's the understanding the church had. When you come to church, they're going to ask you for money. You know, so when you take up an offering, it's this big thing. regularly again, you ask for money again. You know, don't you guys have money? What's wrong with you people? You know? So there was no finances for us to actually live off of. Now we've made this decision, and the Father had to take us to a process of beginning to trust in Him, which was intense, and I would never ever want to go through that again ever in my entire life, but I've gone through it. Now at this point we can trust Him and believe, not just by faith, but in the faith that He gives, that He will always come through financially. He has. Incredibly, but it's a process of believing. He will supply your need, but how many of you understand? He doesn't always supply your need. So, is He a liar? Or is that not your need? Or are you not at the place, by faith, to receive that need met?
Come on.
That's most of the time where we at. You know, see, if you earn a certain salary and you don't get out at the end of the month, is it God not supplying your need, or is it you not being able to work with your money? You know, we need to begin to understand where the Father wants to teach us, where the Father wants to get us to be.
That's right.
You know? But His desire for us is to understand that He is our provider. We know that in everything, not just money, He wants to provide for us, and He wants to supply our needs. He wants to take us to, He wants us to look to Him for love, to know that we are accepted, not rejected. His desire for us is to engage into Him so that we can begin to see Him overshadow us in every aspect of our lives.
Yes.
We understand that He's our banner of victory. He's also our covering. Now this freaks half the church out. But I also do understand that maybe there's just a different way of saying things. You know, the pastor cannot be my covering. The church cannot be my covering. The church cannot cover me. My pastor cannot cover me. My spiritual father cannot cover me. And no man can be over me. And we just need to understand that. Now we get angry with that because we don't understand what that means. But if I go into the court and there's a man that covers me, God cannot cover me. And so the judgment to me is death. So we have had all these frustrations and irritations and belief systems dealing with the fact that, well, God judges to death. And that's the only judgment we've seen because man has been our covering. But now we're beginning to align ourselves and begin to understand that man cannot cover me. I can be in fellowship with man, and man can be my authority.
Preach it.
My spiritual father is not my authority, and he's not my covering. But if my spiritual father, Israel McLuhan, which I love and honor, if he calls me and says, Gustav, I have a problem with your theology, we need to assess it, then I will stop everything I'm doing and I will let him assess me. Even with Mike Barnett, he's not my spiritual father, but he's my older brother. You know, if he has a problem with my theology, we can sit back and he can assess me. There's only certain people that can do that, but they're not my covering. If my spiritual father's not my covering, there's no church that covers me. Okay, I'm in fellowship with my own mother church that I've been with for 27 years, and then we're still in fellowship today. They are still my church. Pastor Harold White, which I love and honor, is still my pastor. Stephen Lumbracht and his wife Sharon, they are still my pastors. Felix Blom and his wife, they're still my pastors. It's a team of 20 pastors in one church with their wives. So there's 40 pastors and a senior pastor, Pastor Harold White and Maud White, and they're still my pastors. You know, but they are not my covering. They're not over me in any way, fashion, or form. Because when I look up, I cannot look up to any man. And we just need to begin to understand that He's my covering, He's my victory. And when we have that understanding in our conscious and subconscious mind, things align. Things change. That doesn't mean that I do not respect my pastor. That they are not my house. That's not the place where I want to be, because that's the church I was born again into. I was born again at a camp, a Christian camp, but after I got born again, I was literally birthed into that church by Yahweh, to be taught and trained. And everything I did came out of that church. So I'm not asking or telling anybody to leave their church or leave the covering as we perceive it, but just to understand, it's not your covering, it's not which is over you, it is in fellowship and governance that you are with them. And that's why we can tithe to them, and we can give to them, but we don't have them cover us. That's why the apostolic covering is an issue, because we've misunderstood. In Him, we are overcomers. We can overcome everything that would hinder us bringing heaven to earth through our lives. We begin to understand that His desire is to overshadow you. like he overshadowed creation before it started. Once he overshadowed the earth, creation fell into place. Once he overshadowed Mary, she became pregnant to behold a child. And it was the Son of Yahweh. We begin to understand that once, the only wants to do is overshadow us. Because once he begins to overshadow you, there's fruit.
Yes.
We know him intimately, experientially, and personally. He is wooing us, calling us to come away with him, to know him, to surrender all to him. It's his desire for you to know him. Exciting, right?
Yes.
He says, I will make you lie down in green pastures. This is where we begin to understand that he is bringing you to a place of rest.
Yes.
Right? And leads me beside still waters. It's that place where nothing that happens around you affects you. And we need to begin to understand that, because everything that happens shakes us. I remember the other day, and I'm not boasting because it's actually nothing to be boasted about, I actually acted like a retard. But I remember being at the fair, and my little son pushes in the front queue, and my daughter, she goes to the back of the queue because she understands, don't push in front, unless you want to get smacked by somebody. And so I now have to look at both at the same time, and I put my focus on Hannah for a couple of seconds because she was standing right by me, and as I walked around to go to eat, and he's gone. And I mean, I am freaking out. Now I'm asking Claire, since where's he? Is he with you? No, he's not with me. He's not standing where he used to be, and there's hundreds of people, he's just gone. And I am freaking out. And Claire's like, just calm down. I'm like, how can you be calm at a time like this? And I'm freaking out, and I'm in this room, and I'm like, and I'm freaking out, I'm running around, and my eyes are messing me around because I've been engaging all day. Now I can't see anything, and I'm getting even more irritated. Eventually, I'm freaking out. I say, no, I can't find her, because of course I wasn't supposed to just wander off like a retard and just go do my own thing. I was supposed to be focused. But I find myself walking back towards the bathroom, thinking maybe they went that side, and she's carrying Ethan and Hannah's walking by the side, and I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. And my son decided, and I know we taught him this, like, this is just, when anything bad ever happens, go to the police. Not thinking that he would do that. This little 3-year-old goes to the police and says, I can't find my mom and my daddy. And so Claire went there, she found him. But I'm telling you, I did not find myself in the rest. I was outside of that rest on purpose, freaking out. My wife was in the rest. I mean, that should have taken her cue, but I was just freaked out. But of course, his desire for us to be in that place at all times. So I failed the test. Yes. Thank you, Jesus. Well, hopefully, I don't want to learn out of a test like that again. I said, okay, from now on, we will strap him to one of our legs. He ain't going nowhere. Anyway, that freaked me out a little bit. Yeah. He will restore my soul. He leads me into paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. See, he wants us to get to that place in our walk with him, where we understand that the death that we fear is just a shadow. And a shadow, in essence, can do nothing to you. Because anything that has a shadow is in the presence of a greater light.
Come on. So
we need to understand that because we're in the shadow of death, death is in the presence of a higher force. And that higher force is my daddy. We should not live in fear or have any understanding. That's why faith is the opposite of fear. And that's also why Satan has driven the church into fear. That everything we do comes out of a place of fear. Which is a major problem, and the Father wants to set us free of all that. Exciting, right?
Yes.
It says, be still and know that I'm God. We can find rest. That's where we understand the deep calls to the deep. That deep place the Father has for us is in Him, where we are still. We don't have to worry about what happens around us, because in Him there's complete and utter rest. In our souls we are crying out for Him, longing to know Him, and He really wants us to know Him, the Lord. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anybody hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and will dine with him and he with me. I love that. I love that. But my favorite pieces of the scripture is where it says, I'll fear no evil, for he is with me. The rod will comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. This is one of my favorite places in the kingdom of heaven. Is to be at that place, and it's really at the edge. It's almost like almost touching the natural realm, where Satan can just get close enough to see, but he cannot enter in. Where he hovers around the place where he sees you're at rest with the Father, having a time of your life, and he cannot come in. And no matter what happens, we carry the kingdom of heaven. I can be in the earth, in this realm, and I can overshadow a certain section of the nation with my spirit in the kingdom of heaven. And Satan can do nothing. He cannot come in. Where I'm engaging with my Father and having a time of my life in the Spirit, Satan does everything in his power to get through to us, but he cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. I love that. How you guys doing? Thank you. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He invites us into that relationship every single day. He's crying out to us, wooing us, desiring so much more for us. And we're beginning to understand that what we have had for the last 10, 20 years is not even touching the hem of his garment. Not even beginning to see what is really out there for us to engage. He's opened up realms. He's opened up so much. And I'm busy teaching on the blood in New Orleans. And we're beginning to understand that there's literally dimensions within the blood. There's realms of his kingdom in the blood. There's portholes in the blood. Matter of fact, they say that the blood is congealed light. And we get to begin to understand that in all of who he is, that intimacy that he longs for, that we get to go into, we operate outside of time and space. that's where the sun and the moon begins to stop overshadowing us, and we begin overshadowing that. Yes. And we understand that when we overshadow the sun and the moon, they no longer scourge us. No longer takes from us. One day to another, I'm a day older. 1 month to another, I'm a month older. 1 year to another, I'm a year older. And so on and so on. Eventually I die because the sun and the moon's over me. But when I switch that around the way it's supposed to be, from out of the kingdom of heaven, things change. Yes. And of course we haven't understood that yet to the full capacity, but the Father wants us to go in and begin to understand. There's so much more of him that we can experience and know. As we open the door in our hearts, he opens the door in heaven. And there is much greater intimacy there in heaven. That's what we always say. We go beyond the veil. Beyond the veil, I'm no longer the bride. Now, I've heard so many of the ecclesia say, well, you have to be the bride. We are the bride. We're going to marry him. But we just don't understand what he's longing for. And I had that mentality in the kingdom of heaven, and I was rebuked. It's not what he desires. It's not the way he works. The physical, sexual intercourse that we have in the earth is for husband and wife, that level of intimacy. We're becoming one, but not really. I mean, we're one in spirit, but we're not physically one. We can again be separated. In Christ, in the kingdom of heaven, there's a dimensional shift that takes place, and I become one with him, where he's the head and I'm the body. And there's no separation. And everything that I do out of him. Everything I say out of him. Everywhere I go out of him. Nothing out of my own anymore, because I'm surrendered to all of who he is. Yes. And I step into him and he overshadows me. It takes intimacy to a new place, a deeper place. He says, come up to the holy place. Come up here is his invitation to us all. To the throne room, to the tabernacle, to the garden, to the river of life, to the waterfalls. Come and meet the seven spirits of God. That is God. That's what God's doing today, inviting us to come. It's been his heartbeat for thousands of years. He's had a handful of people that did this in the Old Testament, a handful of people that did this in the New Testament. Now there's a company of people that he's longing to engage. There's a company of people that's doing this, going in daily, spending time with him. He is in his element. Because the ecclesia is waking up, and that's exciting, right? Yes. He wants our hearts, and he won't relent until he gets them. We need to surrender completely, wholly to him. That's his desire. In Corinthians 6, in 1 Corinthians 6, it says, but the one who joins himself to the Lord is one spirit with him. Yes. I just love that. And I've experienced that physically, and I've shared it with you guys before. But stepping into him, feeling how my whole spirit being, engaging into him, becoming one with him, how I would go as far as to say my spirit bones, but it was a physical thing, although it was a spirit thing. I could feel how my feet became one with his feet, how my calves and my knees and my quads and my whole body, my hips, my chest, my shoulders, my elbows, my hands, all just melted into him. I could feel that the life was going through my body and that was in his body and vice versa. I could feel the way he was thinking, the way he was seeing, the experiences he's had, the things he's experienced in the earth and before creation and after creation and all that he's been doing in between. I could experience that when I was in him, like the high priest walking through the veil. It was incredible, and I believe the Father wants us to get to that place in all of who we are.
Amen.
That's exciting, right?
Yes.
It's an amazing promise to think that we can become one with him. We don't understand it because we don't understand becoming one. It's just not something that we understand. Becoming one with someone else, it's been said many times, but we don't understand it. There's some apps on the App Store that you can mix two people together and see what you would look like. And that's the closest we can get to that right now. I just can't imagine how it would be. But when you're in the Spirit, it's different because two spirits can become one. And I remember, and I've shared this before, and it's a really, really bad example. First of all, yes, there was a time in my life that I smoked, as stupid as that even sounds. But I remember driving in my car, and I was a spiritual, born-again Christian, and I had a cigarette in my hand, and there was smoke coming out of the top of the cigarette. It's a different type of smoke, it's a thicker smoke. You can see the lines of the smoke. And then, of course, I was inhaling the smoke, and when I blew the smoke out, it's two different types of smoke, but it's smoke. Right? And the two became one, and I could no longer see the difference. And the Father said to me, in that place, that's what I want from you. I want you to become one with me so that there could be no different scene. And that's kind of where the Father wants us to be. And that's the closest to the understanding that I've come, because I can't understand how I could become one with any other being. But in the Spirit, we are one. In the Spirit, we are a body. And of course, He wants us to join ourselves to Him every day. Where I am, there my servant is also. We understand that we are in Jesus, and that Jesus is in Christ. Not Jesus in the kingdom of heaven, Jesus is in Christ. Yeah, okay. He's in the Father's house. He is in his Father's house, and the Father's house is not heaven, it is us. We understand that, right? It's the church. And He's in us, and we need to begin to understand how He wants to become one with us, how He wants to engage to His full extent. We cannot get to this intimacy, this level of shifting deeper into Him, unless we operate beyond the veil. And of course, that's His focus in every area of our lives. Go deeper, go higher, go wider. How you guys doing? You anoint my head with oil. We don't really understand that because the gifts are not, it's not anointing. It's a measure of anointing to it, of course. But the gift is what it is. It's a gift. And I've seen people, and Jan talks about this all the time. I don't understand it. How a gift can operate in someone that is blatantly in sin. Not what's in adultery, not what's in pornography. It's visibly to be seen in their lives. But yet they can heal the sick, raise the dead, do all kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying that that's outside of my arena, and I'll never get there. I know that this stuff is out there and anybody can fall into it.
Right.
But the understanding that we need to have is the Father wants us to shift into a place where we are at a deeper, higher, wider place, where it's not just the gifts, and we're not just doing things because of what was given to us. We operate out of a place of intimacy. We operate out of a place where it is just simply the Father overshadowing us. That is a different place of anointing. When I begin to live in Him, and I move in Him, that dimension of His kingdom that comes with me, it shifts and aligns things. I remember I was busy engaging in the heavens while I was preaching. And as I finished the sermon, I went to the front, I switched off the camera, and I walked back to get this off the table. And as I turned around, a lady was coming towards me, and while she was coming towards me, my spirit man was coming back into my body. And as my spirit came into my body with the glory of the fire that I was just in, that came into the atmosphere with my spirit, she stepped back and she fell into the wall. And she said, I don't know what just happened, but I felt something come in you and push me out of the way. And I thought, that sounds very demonic, but I explained to her what I felt happened. It wasn't demonic. She didn't feel that it was demonic. She said it was the presence of Yahweh. Something in me was just so overwhelming that she couldn't come near me. And you need to understand, that's a different type of anointing. We believe in our hearts that if someone prays for me and I get healed, and it's the gifts that flow, and it's the works of miracles, and if someone can speak about something in my life that happened 10 years ago that no one can know about, that's anointing. Someone touched me on the head and I fall into the ground, that's the anointing. Now that's the little fluffy things that comes from the kingdom of Yahweh. There's a greater dimension of the anointing that comes from someone that walks with him, that operates from out of his kingdom, and it's that oil that flows from his presence, that overshadows and brings alignment to who you are as a being, so that everything that comes near you falls into alignment. You know, I've seen this, and I'm not always so excited about it, but it seems like everywhere I go there's alignment. And it's not always pretty. I remember a couple of years ago, I was invited to a church, and I just came to America, and I heard all kinds of things about the assistant pastor, or from the assistant pastor, and then I heard all kinds of things from the actual pastor, and it was just chaotic in essence. And after the conference I gave, I didn't preach against anything they did, I just did my normal thing, and within a week after I left, the church split, and everything just started changing. Major shift, major alignment. And I didn't mean to do that, and I might even want to mean, but that's how it works. Everywhere a son of Yahweh, a daughter of Yahweh comes in, there's alignment, there's shift, and things come into place. That's exciting, right? And it's kind of scary. Help us, Jesus. My cup runs over. I love that. My cup runs over. Of course, we always think that when my cup runs over, it's finances. It's the Father's desire for us to be financially secure. And He doesn't want us to have lack. As a matter of fact, His desire is for us to step into a place where we are financially in a place where we can overshadow others. Yes. You know, when most of us are called to great leadership and to be great in the earth, so His desire for us to begin to look out and after those around us.
That's right.
You know, I've been legislating in the earth for certain things in our lives, and the Father is so faithful. I can go to the court today for something specific and have it within hours afterwards.
That's right.
There's just no limitation. Sometimes I get overshadowed by the things that happen in the natural. And I forget that I should just deal with this in the spirit and go to the court and have it nullified. And when I go, it immediately stops. I mean, I remember there were some things happening in my New Orleans meeting, and it's still going, and I'm still overshadowing and legislating things there because I don't like it. As a matter of fact, I know that that's affecting all the other schools. And so over the last couple of days, 2-3 days, I've been very intensely in the kingdom of heaven, coming against all these things that I see in the spirit. Basically, satanic attacks on the schools, witchcraft. I feel a lot of witches and warlocks coming against the things that we do in the spirit, because we've slain some dragons in the city. We've done some intense things that only really they can see, because the church is not seeing it. Matter of fact, the church thinks we are from Satan. We are a cult of some kind, and we are deceiving God's people. And I don't quite understand how anyone can think that and listen to the message at the same time. But the heartbeat of the Father is for us to begin to understand that there's access into victory at all times. You know, and I've seen it in my life. I've seen the Father, when He begins to tell me the cup runs over, my family has no stress. If you live in my life, you will have, most people will have a heart attack, to be honest with you. It is not easy. You know, we live completely. I cannot work in America. If I can work, it has to be for a church. We're here on a religious visa. From the very beginning, the church that brought us into the country, I had to make sure that we understand it clearly. I do not want to work for a church. I'm here to do what the Father's done. So we've sold everything we owned, come to America with no financial backing in any way, fashion, or form from anybody. We had to trust God, knowing, like He has trained us over the years, how to go in, how to walk in understanding that He will supply my need, not just my need, but He'll have my cup run over. He has trained us to know and to step into that place so that things fall into place. And I look at some of my friends in America that is full-time in ministry. They're not making it financially. Matter of fact, if not 90% of all men of God I know that's in ministry has a job. My family, the Father has blessed us because over the period of 10 years, he's trained us and taught us how to live our faith. If you've never trusted him for $10, you cannot trust him for $1 million.
That's right, yes.
You know, and we need to get to trust him for 10. But I have a budget, so I get a monthly salary. Well, you're not trusting him for anything because you're getting a salary. What you need to do is you need to trust him and how to work with that money. Because you can trust him to such an extent to work with that money that you have more over than what you started with.
Yes.
And we can't understand that, but that's how he can do it. If he can take one pot and have it be filled over and over again for a whole year, then he can surely make your salary double without you knowing it.
That's right, yes.
You know, I've heard miracles. I know Charlie Shan talks about this in one of his meetings where he was speaking financial blessings into the hearts of people, and they said to them, take out your cell phones and look into your accounts. And people's accounts started running up financially, started changing. Of course, we understand that our world money is just on a computer screen, right? And this one guy jumped up, and it was only 7,000 rand, but in South Africa, 7,000 rand is a lot of money. His account went from 1,000 rand to 7,000 rand, right in front of his eyes. My father, my spiritual father, shared testimonies where they were praying for people, and their pockets started swelling up. And it was full of money. Justin Abraham said the Lord told him to give 100 quid to somebody, and he only had 90. He said, well, can I give 90? The Lord said, I said 100. And I said, well, I don't have 100. How can I give 100 if I don't have 110 quid here in his hand? We begin to understand our God is not limited by what we perceive or what we understand, right? Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. This is something that we need to fall into, we need to step into. Mercy is a part of the Father that we haven't engaged. We understand what it means, but Yahweh is justice, judgment, and mercy. We begin to understand that at the Galactic Council, there is a season of mercy. There's people, created beings within the kingdom of heaven called mercy. There's angelic beings called mercy. There's so much in mercy that we can engage that it's mind-blowing. He wants us to begin to understand that as a merciful God, He has given us everything we need, everything we want, and more, and His desire is to overshadow us with the fullness of what He has. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. Of course, the Father's desire for us is to live and move and have our being in Him, to understand that He is in us, and that the house of the Lord is the dwelling place that He's wanted for us to live in from the very beginning. Exciting, right?
Yes.
It's that. Father, we just want to glorify and magnify your majestic name. And as we step into you right now, Father, we look at this psalm and we begin to understand that you are our shepherd, that we shall not want, that you will make us lie down in green pastures, that you will lead us beside still waters, that you restore our soul, that you lead us into paths of righteousness for your sake, for your name's sake, into the yard, the hay, the bath, the hay, that we will walk, though we walk through the shadow of death, we will have no fear, because we know that whoever casts a shadow is in the presence of a greater. And so, Father, we need to understand that. We thank you that you are with us, that you will never leave us nor forsake us, that your rod and your staff comforts us, that you have prepared a table in the presence of our enemies, that you have anointed our head with oil, meaning we are kings, to step up into that fullness, that our cup runs over, that you will supply every need and more, and supply the fullness of it, that goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our lives, and that we will dwell in the house of the fullness, of the full supply of all that you have for us in every dimension, in every realm, in every kingdom. Father, we love you, we honor you, we glorify and magnify your majestic name, and ask, Father, that you will pour into us all that we need for right now. We love you, we praise you in the name of Yeshua. Amen.